Okay. Well, it's fine with me if you're ready to get started. It's up to you.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
time.
let's-
So
Okay, well, let's begin the Admin and Compensation Committee meeting at
Hey,
6.
Darren, I need to pause. I'm sorry.
Sure,
We're not on YouTube yet, so
or not.
give me 1 second.
Yeah, just let me know,
Sure.
please.
Says we're live on YouTube.
it says it's streaming on YouTube on
Yeah.
my computer.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
There's a few minute delay before it comes up on YouTube in case you have to,
Yep.
bleep somebody.
Yeah.
No, you'd never have to bleep somebody on YouTube.
Well,
Right.
it's Darren's meeting. I don't know,
Who's got the
All
dump
right.
button?
I will start recording and then you can start the meeting. Go ahead, Darren.
Okay, thanks, Christy. Okay, it's 8:15-ish, sorry, 6:15-ish, and we're going to start the meeting, the Admin and Compensation Committee meeting. Present are Finance Director, myself, Angie, the Mayor, Rob. So before we unpack this, the whole policy that we want to discuss tonight a little bit, I will be deferential, of course, to the Mayor and to Dave and certainly to Angie too. I guess I'm the new guy. You've certainly spent more time on this than I have. I get the general idea that we're talking about fraud. Usually we're talking about misappropriation of time. Somebody's not, improper punch in and punch out, or resources. Somebody's using the village's lawnmowers for their lawn care service, whatever. So I know this comes in lots of different forms, but there is a policy that we all have that I just wanted to run through and see if this was drawn up, I think, primarily, and anybody can correct me, but some input from Rob, certainly from the Mayor. I saw some work from Dave, from Aaron. So it seems that this thing has come together, this document we're looking at now, from a lot
And
of.
also based on some of Frank's advice too.
Okay, good. So I guess the way that we ought to do this is let's just run through the block sections in the policy. And I don't know if Rob, if you want to share your screen so we
Yep.
can all.
Can I ask one question before we start, just so I understand the two documents that were sent?
Yeah.
We have something from the state as well as something from the village. Now, the state, that policy is already in place, correct? And
Right.
those documents are already signed annually by the employees. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
That's
It's because I
correct.
said, okay,
Those
so
are given to all new hires.
that was
Signed by
from
the-
2012 on, that's already been in place. So this would
Correct.
be an addition. Okay,
Right. This
excellent.
would be new. Mhm.
Okay.
And is this part of a handbook? And are we gonna, is our intention to put this policy into the handbook?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
It'll become part of the employee handbook, right?
that makes sense to me. That's a whole other kettle of fish, right? Handbook.
Hey, Darren, this is Christy moderating the meeting.
Hi,
Can I
Chris.
ask you to pause just for a moment? I'm sorry to do this. I've gotten an email that Amber Dasick, the chief of police, would like in, and that may be important for her to listen and
Sure.
provide some input. So if you'll just give me a moment.
No trouble. We need some hold music.
That would be great. I can sing if that helps. but-
I don't know.
Okay, I won't.
If you're willing, I'll listen.
Okay.
We don't have any attendees and I'm concerned. So I appreciate your patience. Just in that, the link, I sent Amber a new link in hopes that that would work, but there aren't any attendees. And I would think that this would be something that people might want to listen to. So that's surprising to me. So I appreciate you taking the time to pause the meeting.
I think it's called an official's timeout on the field. There you go.
They're reviewing the play.
Yeah. And Christie's under the hood.
Exactly.
Hey, Mayor, is this something that this note for the Village of Chagrin Falls, the one that's attached in these documents, that new hires, do they get a copy of this thing and they're asked to
Absolutely.
sign it?
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody gets a copy. Everybody has to read it and to sign it and
it.
acknowledging that they have read it. And it's available in the departments basically to
Okay.
review.
Great. We have a similar thing where I have my other.
Yeah, we redid the entire employee manual in I can't remember if it was 16 or 17, and then we amended
2017,
it now for the additional fraud stuff when we did. So it's current and for compliance with all the various laws, employee laws. We've had Dale law firm review it, and they made recommendations as well, which we adopted.
I am not, I'm communicating with Amber via email. Everything that I've researched is that the link that was sent out is correct and that people should be able to get on. I don't know that we can stop the meeting or pause.
Well, we could adjourn the meeting, Christie.
And
You could
rejoin.
send out new invites
Right.
to everybody, and then we would just reconvene the new meeting in
Well-
5 minutes or something like that, if that would help you.
I appreciate it. I just got a message from Harry that says he is on YouTube. So we are streaming. So we do have an avenue. So my comfort level is continuing, but I'll leave that to Darren's decision.
I mean, I suppose if we've got somebody on, we know it's live, right?
True
So
story. Yep.
It may just be that it's nobody's interested.
Yeah, could be. Okay,
I
carrying
hope
on.
not.
Thanks. Thanks again for the pause.
All right. Thank you. Should I resume?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, thanks. Here's the page I was referring to that Rob's got up now, but pretty standard, right? We issue this to new employees, they sign it, goes in the file. That's all pretty basic stuff. Everybody's fine with that. I'm assuming we're not looking to alter that in any way. And to review it, I don't know if it makes any sense to review it. It's pretty straightforward.
So the first part, the letter part, would be issued to a new employee, and then where the actual fraud policy is listed, that would be incorporated into the manual. Is that correct?
Actually, you know what? This one, the letter you're looking at right now is new.
It's new, right? That's new.
All right, I
The
do see this.
The one that the employees sign is a little bit different. That's a different letter.
Are
And
there,
that's it, yeah.
This is a brand new addition to the manual.
This
Can
is
you-
part of Dale's draft from July.
Correct, right.
can anybody paraphrase, having seen the old one? Are there any significant differences to this thing?
Well, the old one is the one from the state, correct? That's the
Right.
one that's,
From the state auditor, right.
Yeah, that's from Dave Yost.
it's the Office of the Finance Director, Acknowledgement of Receipt of Auditor, that one.
Mhm.
I like
Right.
this new one better.
Well, this is much more, it gives a much better explanation than the other one is the kind of thing it's very official,
Right.
but it is like a privacy policy when you go to visit a doctor, not everyone reads it.
Right.
So,
Right.
Anybody read it in all of recorded history, Angie?
no, exactly. You just sign that HIPAA thing, okay?
Yeah.
So I guess the purpose is, and I don't know if we can unpack all this tonight, but the purpose is to look through these sections and just see if
Right.
this is a living document, right? This does not exist currently. We're working on this. So let's just kind of run through it together. I think that we understand what the background is. Some of this, I don't know that we have to go in great detail. And we obviously understand the need for it. And the scope, applies to any type of fraud or suspected fraud from employees.
Yeah, I think the big thing is we provided the employees with a number of different resources to go to if they didn't think something was right, because we went around and around on this, Darren, and most of the time, people suspect fraud long before there's proof of anything, or there's something that doesn't going on that just doesn't feel right. And so they'd be very reluctant to make a fraud accusation. So we gave them a number of different sources that they could go to talk to about that. Separated the police chief, Rob, me, the chief administrative officer, mayor, police chief, and law director. Originally was the law director, which would be outstanding because he would be independent of anything in the village. But Rob and I both thought that if somebody, for example, in the service department who barely knows who the law director is, if it was just a suspicion, would be very reluctant to pick up the phone and probably wouldn't do it until it was too late, frankly.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused on when reading the document. I like what you've said in terms of the intent that there are 4 people they can go to, but I'm reading it as, if I read this as an employee, I would think that I have to go to the chief of police or the law director alone, because it seems like that's stated in bold like several times. And then the coming to the mayor or the chief administrative officer is not clear that you guys are also primary reporting sources. Is that?
Well, our intention would be to make that clear. So if you have
Okay.
some language.
I think I think it's just an editing
Exactly.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what you've got to provide for, Angie,
Uh-huh.
is the police chief, the mayor, the chief administrative officer.
Could be the
doing
person.
something that's,
Right.
fraudulent.
Exactly. And that gives you a number of sources. I just think I agree with everything you've said. I just think it's not as clear as we
Yeah,
could.
no,
make it
we're
in writing.
open to, if there's some way to make it clearer or, less intimidating, I guess is what we're
Right.
trying to go to. We thought people would be very reluctant to go with things that just didn't feel right to the law director if they didn't know him.
Sure.
That's what
So-
we were trying to get around.
So I'm taking notes that I'll share with Dale on revising the policy with our discussion from tonight.
I
So
would think that
it looks like the first point we want is to clarify the standard of reporting to all 4 of the people that were mentioned before and make that clear wherever it's mentioned throughout the document.
So Rob, that is the chief, the law director, the mayor, and you. Am I right there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you, Angie. I think going, right to the law director, who's also on the clock, is maybe not the
Right.
first place to go. All due respect to Dale. The other thing is, when do we bring in the direct supervisor? So let's just say it's an issue.
Under
When does that-
investigation, I would believe,
Okay.
in the investigation phase, depending on what the accusation is and who it's reported to.
That makes
I don't think you can, I agree with Rob. I don't think you could have it because, in writing, because the
No.
supervisor may be the one he's reporting on.
Right.
So, in that case, the answer is we wouldn't. Normally, if it was within the department, for example, the street or utility department, after we gathered some facts, we would sit down with Glenn or, John or Mark and say, what's going on here?
I think that it's important to not have a real specific order of investigation, but just how it's reported. And then once it's reported, any of the 4 people it's reported to would deem the best course of action for investigation and who to bring into that. So say someone came to me and reported something, a fraud situation, and I would discuss it with the mayor and possibly the law director if we felt we needed to go to that level for what is reported. Then we'll look in, okay, how are we going to investigate this based on what's been reported and what we know? And then that might bleed over into the police department if we feel that there's an illegal action and it's not just an administrative matter. If it's reported to the police chief originally, but it's not an illegal matter, she might say, okay, I have the report, turn it over to the mayor and we handle it administratively, depending how the facts of the case go.
It seems to me that if I'm understanding the process, and I don't, that you, Rob, essentially, and really, the mayor too, you're sort of living in this document. Right now, what we're trying to do is create the policy that you guys are going to live in and
I
enforce.
think that's fair, Darren.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, we're trying to also encompass our offices in the potential wrongdoer.
So yeah, so
as
if
well.
I'm understanding, so skipping down in the I guess the part you have up, Rob, when you get down to authorization for investigating suspected fraud, it
Right.
says members of the investigation team. So the investigation team would be appointed by whoever it was reported to. I mean, maybe I mean, obviously you're saying we want to leave it loose so that it can be applied in all different ways, but say the mayor was the person that we were concerned about and they reported to you, you would handle that or vice versa?
I would, well, say,
How does that work?
so say that someone reported to me fraudulent activity about the
Right.
mayor.
Right,
I would bring that up to the law director and police chief.
right.
To try to eliminate any issues since I report to the mayor. And then the
Okay.
law director and the police chief would decide how they wanted to proceed in that
And-
matter. What
and
my
they
role
would-
be.
They would make an investigation team,
Yeah.
Right.
correct?
Angie, I think most of these things start as gray areas.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't think anybody's going to report any mayor or CAO of outright theft or something. It's going to be suspicious behavior. For example, every
Sure.
Friday I'm playing golf with a contractor.
Contractor that we're using on all the different things, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that's the sort of thing that's most likely to occur. And it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look good, but you're not sure what it is. I think that's the thing that's most likely to get reported.
I
Top
feel
level.
like with reading this document, I guess what all of the intent seems great, and I obviously think it's necessary. I think that what could make it better would be things like that. Like, I think that you don't want anyone who's reading it, either if you're on the administrative side and say you're the new mayor or you're the new CAO, not knowing what they're supposed to do. So making that as clear as possible, as well as also when we get down to this list of things that could be considered fraud, it might help to have some examples because some of that's a little,
Well,
hard to
I know
know.
in the, we have prohibitions against accepting things.
Right.
I mean, that isn't fraud per se, but, I think that's the sort of thing that would be handled initially on an internal basis as a violation of policy.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, any harm in saying something like using the service department lawnmowers, for personal use or something like, just so people
Oh,
understand.
I could
what
see
it
what you're
means.
saying. All right, I get you now.
know,
I get you now.
So-
Yeah.
If it says use of village assets, for any personal use have to be approved, I feel like that we could make it more clear what we're talking about so that an
Right.
employee would understand.
That's fine.
Yeah, that falls under
So
it.
I don't know how we get full, there are a lot of, it's a very slippery slope, as we know, and there are a lot of different examples of what could potentially be
True,
fraud.
that's
And what
true.
we want
True.
from this document is
Fraud.
should be protection for people that work for the village. Like, we know you don't want to do something wrong. So
Right.
let's explain to you. It seems like this is something should be covered during an orientation or evaluation. Like, we don't want you to be, forget the whistleblowers for a minute. Think about the people that are working in the village and don't want to do the wrong thing, but they
Right.
don't really know clearly exactly what that is.
True.
I don't know that we can define it all in this thing. Somewhere there needs to be some training.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I wrote down on my notes training on what part of it. That actually had to do with the policy, in the policy section where the administration is responsible
Right.
for all of this. I felt like, well, you would hope that the administration would receive some training on what they're supposed to do because, they're basically taking the responsibility for prevention of fraud, misappropriation, inappropriate conduct, and all the investigations. So somehow they need to know what they're supposed to do. So I'm not sure when that happens, or do they get that from the state, or, if we have new people in?
Well, again, I think you got to make a distinction between illegal
Right.
and violation of
Ethics or something, right?
well, ethics or internal policy. I
Right.
mean, playing golf every Friday afternoon with somebody isn't per se illegal.
Right.
But it is a violation of policy and it doesn't look good.
Mhm.
So, on that situation, that fact pattern, I pick golf because I don't play golf.
Yeah.
You're saying,
But,
It's safe
but,
example.
and that, I mean, it'd be pretty clear that it'd have to be handled internally.
mhm,
And, and I would think our normal internal procedures about verbal written warnings
Mhm.
would apply to that. Now, if we even suspect that it crossed the line to possibly illegal, I think at that point, we would bring in the police chief
Correct.
and the law director. That's what happened at the, and why we're having this discussion. Dave came to me with Katie, and we talked for about a half an hour. And it was very clear that what had happened at that point, it was very clear that it was more than unethical. It was illegal. And I picked up the phone and I called Amber, and a half hour later, she was here and the investigation started.
So I think that the line in that policy section, Rob, if you're, can you scroll to that policy? It's up above that. Here at the very bottom of the paragraph, not in bold, where it says each member of the administration team will be familiar with the type of improprieties that might occur within his or her area of responsibility and be alert for any indications of irregularities. So does that mean each department head or what? So,
Yes.
and that you will be training them, or they will know what they should be looking for, or is that already known?
Well, it's already known to a degree, but
Okay.
with this new policy, we're not just going to hand it to people and say, here you go.
Right.
We'll
You're gonna
definitely have a discussion
provide
with
some
all the
training.
department heads on
What they
reading
should be looking
through
for.
and discussing how it rolls out.
Great.
Yeah, because I think Angie, you've touched on it a couple times now, and the idea that we're going to get every possible, infraction in the actions consisting of fraud is just not realistic. I think it's just
I think
broad.
we do have enough sections under the actions
Oh, yeah.
that cover a broad brush over what you can fit into, and a lot of the situations we've mentioned so far do fit into one of the categories listed.
Do we need some, I hate to say like vague, it almost sounds like like an illegal document, anything else that looks unusual
I see.
be considered, or, like,
It says that at the very last.
Like a boiler, like a catch-all
Right.
boilerplate thing. So, and any similar or related inappropriate behavior. There you
right.
go.
That's the gotcha.
That's
catch
yeah,
all.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep going back to this as I read this. I really feel like this needs to be a document that people can feel they've got some protection by knowing what exists in this thing.
Agreed.
They know where the slippery slope is or where the rope is. I think you're doing a good job of that, whoever wrote this.
Dale Markowitz drafted this.
Okay. What about the other inappropriate conduct? Do we need that? Is that?
I think that is in there because of the computer and the electronic world. We don't want
Something to develop that.
yeah.
I
And
gotcha.
it's impossible to
Right.
define everything that's there,
Sure.
should be there.
I
No.
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense to me now that you mention it.
And I know that Dale was involved in the drafting of the original employee manual, but when I got to this other inappropriate conduct part, I feel like there's a whole section in that manual that covers reporting and whistleblowing for other types of behavior. I don't
There
know
is,
if that,
Angie.
yes, I don't know if that needs to be referenced or anything, but obviously like if Dale would know when it goes into the report. I mean,
Well, I think our intention is when
Yeah.
this is all approved, is to give it out, and to have
Right.
a meeting with the department heads, and they in turn to have a meeting with their
they're people.
people. And again, I mean, we all know when there's something that
Right.
we've seen and we feel uncomfortable about, or just doesn't feel right. And we want to provide them with an avenue without any fear of retribution that
Mhm.
they can talk to somebody about it.
Agree. That's a good, it's good for the employees as well as for the village. So I think we're filling a hole that should be in that manual that we should have addressed. So,
Yes, I agree with
good.
that.
yeah.
I read in here somewhere about anonymity or something. Where does that exist? Like your protection, confidentiality, of course, that's where that is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's of course needed. Okay. And we are, Rob, can you scroll down to that for just a second? Investigation. Do we have enough captured in there?
The one comment that I made and sent out to the committee was, I think it's a little confusing in the statement in this that says if the investigation by the mayor or myself find that the fraudulent activities have occurred, the law director and chief of police will be notified. Clearly, that's the case, but I didn't want people confusing that with the statement of anything that you want to report can also be made to the chief of police or the law
Right.
director directly before.
That's
I do-
where it gets confusing.
I don't want
That's-
employees to get confused with that.
Right, I agree. I
So,
feel like that's the
yeah.
language I feel needs cleaning up a little bit,
Yeah,
and
so-
you agree. It's just a little confusing, but I think it just take a little bit of wordsmithing.
Yeah,
Do
I
you-
think that's right, Angie.
Yeah.
Do we want to work through that now, or is that something we want to circle back on?
Well, my thought is to have a separate section of reporting. We've described that the policy covers, we described types of fraud and activity that's not allowed. And then we should have a whole section just says reporting any suspicions or actions. And make it very clear under that,
How it
who
works.
gets reported to, totally separate from these other sections, because we keep repeating the chief of police and law director,
exactly.
but if we have it in a certain section, say this doesn't happen for many years, and an employee says, oh, I think something's wrong, let me see what my employee manual says.
Right.
Boom, when he goes to that section that says reporting, it'll be
Right.
very clear his, first steps to take. And then under investigation, that'll be the next step to be.
That is what I would like to see too. I'd like to see it if it from the eyes of somebody that has a concern, that they could look at this and know what they need to do.
That's everybody's goal, Angie.
yeah.
Nobody's arguing that. point.
Agree. Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. Okay, so that section is gonna get explored. Okay.
Now, if I understand, so since this is written like a letter and then the policy is put in between it and then there's a signature at the bottom, is the intent when this is initially rolled out to have everybody sign on to it, then put it in the manual, and then there'll never be a sign on again? Or will there be some kind of sign on procedure that happens with this on? Or,
Well, what you can do is, first of all, any new employee will recycle through the whole thing.
right.
I don't know, when the manuals are updated, which they periodically should be, I
Right.
guess if the law changes or there's court cases that
Right.
change something, we have to do it there, but on the fly, they ought to, assuming no major legal changes or law changes, I think they ought to be reviewed and updated, I don't know, periodically every 5
Right.
years, say.
Agree.
And then they could be, have them signed off again. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is necessary. I think this is good. At the end of the day, if somebody's going to commit fraud, they're going to sign this and go on their merry way and defraud you. I think that getting the people that are around them, to know that they've got a reporting
Right.
means
Exactly.
if things don't feel right, is the most important value of this.
Yep.
Because most of the time people are aware that things just don't feel right. They don't know what's wrong, but that doesn't feel right. Doesn't pass the smell test. And what we want them to do is report those events to us on a no comeback basis.
I couldn't agree more, Mayor. I think that this, as crazy as it sounds, people that are apt to commit fraud, this is not for them.
Right.
No, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
One
But
point-
I mean, what we have done, Darren, and I think this is important, we've eliminated an ability of saying, I don't know. Now, everybody
Right.
knows you shouldn't steal money, but stealing time, money, yeah, of course it is. But we made it clear that we're going to consider those sorts of things to be unethical behavior. And they can't say, well, I didn't know.
So I only have one more question, and then I'm satisfied with this information, in terms of it being on its way to being a great addition. Should we be incorporating the state's fraud hotline into this, or should they stay two separate documents, or what? I don't, obviously the state's going to require that we continue informing about the fraud hotline. They'll have to sign that anyway as a new employee. Should we be putting that this is another way of reporting in or not? Or did Dale speak to that at all?
I don't know. Rob, did you speak with Dale about that? I didn't raise that point. I mean, that could be a fifth.
Right, in addition that there's also this
Yeah, I
hotline
mean,
that they can call.
I suppose the
You know.
chief of police, the chief administrative
I know.
officer, and the mayor could all be in on it, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Well,
That would be
we
quite a
had the,
story.
we had the old county trustees and they were all in on it.
That's
So,
why you need the state hotline. So,
yeah, so probably not a bad idea to
Okay.
put it there, but we don't want them calling the state because somebody
No, I
plays
understand.
golf with somebody every Friday.
Okay.
you know, we'd
Yeah.
rather handle that internally.
Of course. True. So you don't want to, so this policy is aimed to catch things that
I
are,
think all this is gonna catch, Angie,
right,
is the unethical stuff.
right,
I think
exactly. So
everybody
it's,
would have reported if they knew of outright fraud going on or
Right.
stealing things from the service department. I think they would
Right.
have reported that with or without this.
true.
It's the other,
Okay.
what I would call almost soft
Small,
stuff, or
small
the gray
potatoes,
area
more,
Right.
yeah, okay,
stuff.
right, okay.
Yeah,
I'll ask Dale about the blend over with the state policy.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are pros and cons. I just wanted to know if there was an answer, so, okay,
it is a little confusing to have both
right,
as an option. You'd like to use our local option first.
right.
Yeah, Ange, I'm with you. I like the way this is written. I've read it over a few times prior to the meeting, and I don't have a lot really that I think needs changing. There's that section we're gonna explore. Rob, I thought that was a good idea, good suggestion. And otherwise, do you want to roll through the rest of this thing? Or are we satisfied?
So what do we have, what we haven't, so there's a section on reporting procedures, but Rob has said that they're gonna work on that a little bit to make sure it's very clear,
And then there's just the
Determination,
termination, which is
which
pretty
is
straightforward.
self-explanatory, and administration being responsible, and that, so it's relatively straightforward,
Mhm.
you know?
How, I mean, does anyone, the folks that are gonna do the hard work on this thing, that's a lot of you, Rob, I suppose, and
Yeah.
the mayor, how much time do you think we need, and what do we do with it from here? Bring it in front of council?
Yeah, I think, you know, give us a chance to wordsmith this.
Yeah.
We can circulate it to you informally, and if
Okay.
you don't have any problem with that, we're just clarifying this. Everybody's agreement on the agreement. It needs some wordsmithing. We can have it submitted to council. I'm not sure, it's not an ordinance, I don't think, Rob. I don't know what we would.
I don't
think
think
we-
council ever,
I think we adopted the employee manual. I don't know whether we need to adopt a revision or not, but I do think there might have been an because I know that we handled that in admin and comp and recommended it to council, and I think it was adopted as the employee
Well,
manual.
that's fine. I mean, what we could do is just incorporate this into
That little piece in.
the employee manual, and then just amend the employee manual
Agree.
for it.
Right,
Procedurally, that might be the best course.
I
yeah.
don't know if this is appropriate or if it even makes sense, but do we run this thing by an insurer just to see if this is a
Interesting.
amount of coverage? Because they're gonna come back and say, if God forbid something should happen,
Right.
you didn't have enough coverage, you didn't do enough education. Should we have someone take a look at this thing?
I'm not, well, I mean, we can ask Dale that question. You know, I don't think any insurance company would give you that opinion that would be worth 2 cents, because you could then come back against
Say.
them.
Yeah,
And you'd have so many weasel words in that,
Well,
letter,
even,
is, you know, we'd all laugh at it.
right, even just some free advice. No one's gonna be able to be held to this.
Yeah.
You're right, no agent's gonna say, yeah,
In today's age, Darren, everybody's afraid to give anybody advice.
right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting we need CYA, because I think there's good work that's been done here, but
Yeah,
Just-
no, I hear what you're saying, but I just don't know. We'll talk with Dale about that. I just don't know that that's possible, but go ahead.
Darren, I could check with our insurance company. I'll run it by them when it's done. But don't forget, we're fully covered in our current situation, and we
Right.
didn't have any policy in place, so,
right. I guess it doesn't protect you from litigation either way,
right.
or your insurer.
Mhm.
Okay, I think I'm satisfied. Angie, are you
Yep.
good?
No,
Okay.
sounds like a good plan to go forward.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I guess with that, Christy, do we call this meeting to close? Is she even on the line?
She around?
Hey, I'm on the line,
She
yes.
is.
I'm the new guy. Do I just say meeting adjourned?
Yes,
go.
if we want to offer an opportunity for any members of the public who
okay.
have joined, we can do so. If there's anyone on the Zoom platform that would like to speak, please raise your hand. Darren, I think you're safe to adjourn.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, great. See you in a few minutes.
Everyone.
Okay, bye.